Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files. My name is Kelly, and I'm a foster with a rescue in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. And today I'm talking to somebody that I have been following for at least a year now and getting to know their story via social media. I have Cameron with me from Does It Dangle. Cameron works with Austin Pets Alive, and he has been rescuing animals for I don't know how long, but we're going to learn and find out. And the reason that I reached out to Cameron and I really wanted to talk to him is because his Instagram page takes what can be the struggle and the sacrifice and some of the hardships surrounding animal rescue and turn it into something fun. And I just really love that. I love that approach. I think we need so much of that, especially in animal rescue and animal welfare. So, welcome, Cameron. Thank you for joining us from Austin, Texas today.
Howdy, y'all.
So I want to get a little bit started. I want to go back a little bit. I want you to please fill me in on your journey in animal rescue. How long have you been doing it, and how did you first get involved?
Yeah. So I was born in 1990. No, I've always had a dog in the house. That's how it started. We were a air quotes dog family. Never cats. Ooh, cat people are weird. All that stuff. But you always had a dog in your house, and if one was getting old, we needed to make sure we had a second one to keep them young. And then there was never a lull. I adopted my first dog in college, like my personal dog, from Austin Pets Alive. Was really ugly mutt, just had puppies, 3 legs, not a Chihuahua, not a Beagle, mixed thing. And it was the most important thing in my life. And I only got a couple years with her. She had some very freak intestinal torsion thing. But feeling the love and the heartbreak that something can give to you in 2 years was important. And I think something I decided I was never going to be without, both the heartbreak and that amount of love that only an animal can give. So I finished college, did 10 years as an exercise physiologist doing cardiac rehab, went through COVID and all that stuff in the hospital, and decided that I wasn't wildly passionate about what I was doing and waking up and doing every day. And then my incredible wife, I call her the duck because she is a smoking hot vet wife. She afforded me the opportunity to chase my dreams, and the two of us were going to work at shelters together. And the first prospect fell through, but she still was like, no, let's make you good at what you do. I flew to a facility in Florida with Dogs Flying for Life. I call it the Guantanamo Bay of dog shelters, an interesting social experiment on what you could do with dogs, given the resources and time and energy. And 10 days I spent living in a dorm-like setting on a kennel in the middle of nowhere, Florida, improving defensive handling, shelter animals, and all that stuff. Pretty intense way to go from, hi, I'd like to change career. And it's like, what if we put you in one of the toughest facilities you could possibly learn dog handling? It's like, sure, let's do it. We then moved up to Indianapolis, worked at a shelter there for a handful of years, or months, I should say. It was not even a year. Realized that there was not a good fit for us. Signed up to work in Hawaii, came back to Austin, got real excited. That unfortunately fell through. There's a theme here in a short amount of time. And I realized, dang, I should probably have a job. And then was like, what better place in the shelter I pretty much grew up with supporting and all that than Austin Pets Alive. So I'm back there. My wife's actually starting a job at Austin Pets Alive doing transport coordination. She is a veterinarian part-time at a different place. So we pretty much eat, sleep, breathe, doing animal things in one way, shape.
So, what is your specific role at Austin Pets Alive? Because just from what I see, it does sound like you do a lot with maybe some of the more difficult dogs that have some behavioral concerns. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, so I'm the assistant manager of the behavior team. So APA is a really exceptional shelter in the sense that we only take dogs that are going to get euthanized, whether that be for space at some of the rural shelters, medical reasons for, again, rural shelters obviously aren't going to be doing these really intense surgeries, or even the city shelter, Austin Animal Services. We will pull animals from them if they have like a foreign body or they need a leg amputation or something. And then the third one is way of behavior. So dogs that are labeled as behavior dogs at other shelters. they don't have the resources or the skill or the time or the employees to invest a little bit more time in enrichment and satiating outings for dogs that are in shelter. The majority of the time, the dogs really just need to hang out in play group and spend some time just getting enriching outings, learn not to be mouthy and jumpy. But for the most part, I deal with dogs that probably wouldn't be given a chance at other shelters because they're a little trickier, a little more emotionally complex, and a lot of shelters don't have that resource that APA does, which is a really stellar behavior program.
What drew you to working specifically with dogs with not so great behavior all the time? How did you come about that?
One thing that will be a theme throughout this conversation is I'm really big on crying because I see a lot of myself in these animals that I'm helping, and to be thrown away because you experience trauma or you have emotional complexity, so you don't fit, unfortunately, in the shelter that you happen to pop up at is unfair. So I really like to support those animals that just need understanding for sometimes only a few days, sometimes a few months. But the idea of a dog not making it into a home because of past trauma is something that is not something I'm going to accept. And I want to put my life into.
So this conversation is already going a different direction than what I expected to be totally honest with you, which to be clear, I warned you that might happen. Like I was upfront that that might happen. And I'm excited about it because we have a difficult foster right now that I am trying to navigate along with the rescue that we work with, along with my husband, trying to figure that out. And I think that as a foster, as a rescue organization, even somebody who's as dedicated to behavioral cases as you clearly are, we can't ignore the fact that these animals need potentially more intentional placement to get into the right home. But also, in some cases, they may actually be taking a space for an animal that doesn't have, some of these issues, right? Because I'm dealing with that right now personally because we've had Max now since the end of June. We've had him back. He was returned to us after his adoption failed. And I could have fostered probably 6 or 7 more animals in that time. And so I just wonder, how do you kind of navigate some of those thoughts? Do you explore some of that with yourself? How do you reconcile that on your own terms?
Oh, I wish there was a perfect algorithm. I wish there was they get 2 chances at this level bite. They get 2 months. One factor's up, then we cycle them through. There's just no real objective, clear way. There's no perfect formula for what a behavior animal is. I believe every dog deserves a chance, but they don't deserve unlimited chances. I think warehousing dogs, and this is kind of the problem, which I might upset a few folks here. I don't like no-kill language. And again, my thoughts are different than what the shelter I work at. I'm simply an employee. Whatever disclaimer needs to be said there. I wholeheartedly believe in the no-kill movement, and then at the same time can admittedly see that it is causing problems in animal welfare because we're keeping dogs for 2, 3, 4 years sometimes at a shelter without any plan. They're dangerous or unsafe. Some programs don't have a behavior program. They have somebody who can technically handle the dog, so therefore they won't be euthanized, kind of thing. That unfortunately causes other dogs in other spaces to be euthanized. Now, the whole overpopulation, overcrowding, it's not happening here, it is happening there, whatever. I think if anywhere in the United States is having to go, we have 5 dogs that just came in, we have 3 kennels open. We unfortunately do need to let some go. If that is happening anywhere in the United States, then it's an entire United States problem, not city by city. Because like Austin could be a no-kill city, but both north and south of us by only an hour, there are shelters that are having to make space decisions. And most of the time it is, are they sick? Have they shown any behavior? A litter of puppies gets up a respiratory infection. Okay, there are 6 lives that we all have to medicate. We'll have to spay and neuter. We'll have to take care of. Or we can't have this spread to the rest of the shelter. Unfortunately, we're in 6 puppies. That's happening in our state. in our country. So how can we go? We need to save every animal and have a 99.78 save rate. And if we have a 99.76 save rate, then we're failing. And we need to make sure we keep those numbers up and just put them in a closet, put them in a hidey hole, stash them back here with dogs that are genuinely not safe. And it's not a matter of like someone who doesn't know animal welfare deciding they're not safe, but actually animals that have hospitalized people multiple times, they shouldn't be getting more of a chance than a puppy with a cough an hour down the road. So yeah, it's really, really difficult to go. I work in behavior because I want to say behavior dogs. I also don't think behavior dogs should be given a chance more so than non-behavior dogs. It's again this very interesting tightrope that I walk between when are we doing more than we should be doing and when are we not doing enough. Yeah, that's my perfect question because I was having this conversation with my wife yesterday. Should behavior animals be allowed? Well, what makes a behavior animal? Is this something that's worth putting time into? Is this a companion animal that's safe to put out in the public? Yeah, it's interesting.
Is and to be fair to you, I didn't expect you to have a perfect response, but I think part of even attempting to navigate the question at all means that we have to like ask it and try to like think through it with people who are experiencing it from different perspectives and different areas. You just put up a video on your account like a day or two ago about how every dog owner, if you want to become a great dog owner, needs to navigate through having a bad dog. And I resonated with that video not only because of the foster that we have now and how navigating his behavior has made me so much better to my resident dog and thinking about my past resident dogs, but we had a past resident dog who was also a behavior case, and we learned so much from what Wilson put us through. But why don't you tell me what motivated you to kind of put that thought out there and talk about and really say everybody should have at least one bad dog and navigate through a bad dog?
It was just a reel. Someone said something about a golden retriever boyfriend or something. It's like, yeah, golden retrievers because they're unproblematic and, there's just a hamster rolling on a cage up there. There's nothing actually going on. And then so, well, that doesn't even not emotionally flex. Like, yeah, but like a lot of people grew up with good dogs. And I mean, there has been a shift in the last couple decades of more reactivity. COVID did not help at all. Less social, more anxious, more anxiety, and dogs over the last couple decades. I mean, any dog trainer, handler, whatever will say in the last 20 years, the German Shepherds we saw in the 90s are completely different than the German Shepherds we're seeing in the mid 20s. But yeah, golden retriever boyfriend was the comment that I heard. And I was like, yeah, because people grew up with the family dog. And it was golden retriever. It was easy. And then they get another one and it's a boring, easy dog. You never have to think about what that dog is feeling or experiencing or what they're going through when they're navigating an environment. They just are good. They're just easy. But then you think about what labels a dog bad. And I very intentionally put quotes on bad because a bad dog is also, again, inappropriately labeled bad because they're emotional, because they experience trauma, because they are unsure, because they haven't been actually taken care of through these really intense high stress moments. They've had no guidance through it. They don't know who to look for. They don't know what they're supposed to do. So they go with the only thing they know how to, which is lunge, which is bark, which is bite, because it's worked in the past to keep them safe while they're experiencing this overwhelming amount of trauma or stress. And I think until you've been on the other end of that leash, working and walking a dog through what you know is going to be an emotionally challenging experience for them, your brain doesn't think like that until you've worked it, until you've worked a stress dog, until you've worked a stranger danger dog, or until you've had to experience that and meet that dog emotionally where they're at. You'll never be able to see them as a being, sentient, emotional thing until you've seen them be emotional. And golden retriever boyfriends are emotional. They're just happy. They're running around with sticks. They're chewing on a ball. They might have chewed a shoe when they were a puppy. So yeah, bad dogs make incredible dog owners. They're stressful. They're very stressful, and they take a lot of work. But they make you so much better at owning a dog. And I know a lot of people hate that term, owning a dog. But and it makes you so much better as a guardian, as a caretaker for another being, whether it be your friends, your spouse, maybe even a child. Once you've experienced how to work a dog at that emotional level, I could literally ramble in circles about this. Likely,
No, no, it's okay. And I don't think that you're rambling. I just think that it's so interesting and important because what I find and I don't know if you feel this way at all either is that because a lot of us grew up with a good dog that was easy, to your point, like I don't think my parents even owned a leash for my childhood dog. Like literally did not own a leash for her. And she was that dog that we would go out to the woods behind our house and play. And the only rule, other than be back before dark, was take the dog with you. And so I think there's a lot of if you grow up in a scenario like that, or you have an easy dog in, say, your 20s like that, you have this idea that it somehow has something to do with you, that you've created this easy dog, and that your next dog should be just as easy because yours the same. So this dog should be the same. And the reality of it is that that's not at all the case, that they are completely a different being and that you are projecting this idea of a dog onto them as opposed to necessarily stepping back and accepting them for the dog that they are.
oh my gosh, I love that so much. It was like, I don't think you understand. When I was in college, my dog was perfect. And that's because I'm great at dogs. Like, that's so incredible. I really like that. It's like, because I did that. I created the good dog, right? Because of me. And so therefore I go to the dog place and I get the dog and then I turn it into the same exact dog.
Mhm.
That's fantastic. I really, really like that.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I also think that for me personally, my perspective on what was a quote unquote good dog or what was a quote unquote bad dog was very different when I was in my early 20s. Now that I am gonna have my 40th birthday this year, it's different. Like my standards are different. I remember I was talking to my brother-in-law just last night and he said, "What's recall training? You just said you were doing recall training. What is that?" And I said, "Okay, well, it's like when you drop the leash and you literally train the dog to be able to always come back to you when you call them and not get distracted by other things and not run their way." And I said, "I used to walk 4 dogs off leash on a hike all the time. But then when I think about it, that had nothing to do with me because they did not come back to me. They just wanted to be with me. So it really had nothing to do with the fact that I was intentional about it. They just wanted to be with me. And so it's just interesting. I think we have to approach every single animal different and stop putting our own projections on how we are supposed to be or how they're supposed to be and maybe just accept this for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, what makes a good dog? What makes a bad dog? And then where are you willing to meet the animal that you brought into your house emotionally?
Right. Right. Fortunately or unfortunately, and I've mentioned this before, the internet is now available to us. So if you are in a situation like in the role that you're in or the role that I'm in as a foster or you're a new adopter and you do have a behavior that you don't understand, there are a lot of resources out there to try to make that decision to say, okay, I'm going to stick with this animal and I'm going to try to figure it out. Obviously, there's bad information too, but there's a lot of good information out there. So fortunately, there's a lot of people putting stuff out there to try to help us all sort of navigate that together.
Yeah, the amount of people who recognize that dog training is very difficult to access. I mean, you have to have money to access help in a lot of spaces, especially physical help. And there's a lot of people starting nonprofits and organizations where we want to give dog training for free, or we want to be able to make it affordable. We want to be able to give classes to people. So, yeah, I always, whenever I occasionally, usually 2 to 3 times a week, I get, "Hey, can you help me train this dog thing?" In my DMs, and I was like, first off, I work like 45 hours a week and have a full time job, and then whatever my social media and stuff is as well. And then they give a very vague like, "Dog barks occasionally." It's like I'd have to be there. I'd have to be hands on. I don't have the time to do that, but I know this organization, and this organization. And so I'm always sending links and folks to people that I trust because there is a ton of information out there. And there's a lot of people that want to help folks who genuinely just want to do right by their dogs, even if they don't have $100 to do that.
I'm glad you brought up your social media because I am so interested in why you started it the way that you did and what you're hoping to accomplish with your Instagram page.
My personal Instagram page has, I think, 600 followers, and I posted a couple stories, air quote stories, to my personal page of the Dangle test. It's a temperament test in cats. I did it with some very blocky, airheaded, pity things that were like long stays, and people were like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen." I get like 40 responses on my personal page, and I was like, I've literally not talked to half of those people in maybe 5. I was like, no, okay. Then a couple people peer pressure bullied me and be like, you actually have to make a TikTok. Oh, you have to do an Instagram on this. It'll blow up. And I was like, okay, sure. So I kind of jokingly did it. And couple pages later or posts later, I think I only had like 6 or 7 actual videos up. Me pick up goofy dogs that were silly and putting a little check mark and poorly editing all of it. And I think Snow is covering the camera, like 3 of the ones that I posted. But in 2 months, I had 40,000 followers, and I was something going on, and people, person after person after person, was telling me, "Yeah, Instagram, the algorithm literally sent me all 5 of your posts back to back to back to back to back." So I don't know what that was about. I still don't understand the algorithm. I'm terrible at social media, but here we are because I saw it make a difference. The first fundraisers I did was like cover an adoption fee, and we covered 12 different animal adoption fee in like 4 hours. And I like was trying to keep up with like a new dog. How about this cat? Do you guys want to cover this? And post, and all of them were covered like immediately. It's like, what is going on right now? And then I've seen the power that it can do. People coming who have never even stepped foot in the shelter coming to adopt specifically this dog that I picked up that is a terrible fit for their home. But look at this other dog that you didn't see. And so it was getting
Right.
people in the door as well. And folks were coming in and volunteering and fostering and adopting. They saw a silly little temperament test and a big dumb pity thing that I happened to pick up. And I saw that this actually could be somehow and impactful and dumb, albeit. It was definitely overhandling of dogs. And watching back some of the past ones, I've never been bit when doing it. Never pushed a dog to that point. I've barely ever, I think maybe once got a weird defensive growl from a dog. So I just want to preface that. I've never pushed a dog into it, and none of my dogs afterwards have ever bit anyone. So, or that
Mhm.
argument, which comes out frequently. Um, but there were dogs that were stressed out, and I was doing too much. And me knowing who I am now, 2 years later, I would definitely bailed a lot earlier on handling the dog that way. And I'm trying to phase out the dangling as well, not completely because they're still silly cute puppies and kittens and things. Um, but comically, the dangle videos usually tank as far as views and engagement and stuff now. People care about the more fun, emotional, happy things that I'm doing instead of the silly gimmick that started this page, which was every day I'd pick up 1 to 2 animals, post them, get 50,000 views on each video, 100 followers a day without question, over and over and over again. And now it's kind of shifted to where I don't have to do whatever it is that you have to do in order to be successful in social media. I don't have to do that anymore. I found that being authentic and genuine and showing true personalities is so much more impactful than they let their legs swing.
Well, I mean, it led me to want to connect with you because obviously the Dangle videos are super fun and cute and sweet. But what I like about them is that pretty much most of the ones that I can think of, most of the dogs have these like big goofy smiles on their faces, and then like as soon as you put them down, they run back up to you like, "Hey, that was let's interact again." And but I think what really drew me to pay attention and not just see a video and scroll on were the times that you were candid about some of the really hard stuff, some of the incidents that you've had in your own home with resident dogs. I believe some time ago, if I'm not mistaken, I that story kind of has sat with me. And then even just recently, talking about that, the bad dog thing. I believe you might have had a bite recently too. Just talking about some of those really candid things I think are really important. So I think it's so important to I think it's so important to pierce the veil to just say like this is hard, this is difficult, and I'm not saying that every dog is going to be perfect, and I'm not saying that every behavior case can be resolved in this like perfect and wonderful way. But what I am saying is that we all have to kind of know better and do better, it seems like.
Yeah, and I have a couple reels for people again commenting on what you're doing is dangerous or whatever, and it's just like, unfortunately, in our TikTok scroll algorithm page jail that we are in, you have to make people stop for a moment on your video, and then you get the opportunity to actually say with it. And then almost the exact same thing applies to the entire speed of, look, here's something silly. Anyway, this is so crushing sometimes. And it's really hard to get people to stay when you go, all right, do you want to cry? Like, emotionally invested. I call it the Sarah McLaughlinization of animal welfare. It just is effective because it pulls on people's heartstrings and the arms of an angel. And look how terribly sad and depressed all of these dogs are. All of them are sick. All of them are doing poorly. Every dog in a shelter is just a criminal that is stuck in a cage, and they're all amazing. No, I work with these dogs all the time. Every single day, I go into work. I see some of the happiest beings on this planet. So I'm not going to sit here and go, all of them are sad. Give me your money. It works. It really does. It has ASPCA is doing it on those funds and donations because look how sad and depressing these dogs are. So every bleeding heart is going to cry money into them. We don't have to get people depressed about shelter animals. We can get them excited about shelter. But we can't pretend it's always rainbows and sunshine. It's not. And I think it's unfair to paint them in either one of those lights exclusive. All animals are happy playtime, and then all animals are sad. So yeah, it's unfair to the animals, to the viewers and people who love animals to say all of them are sad. It's always sad. And then all of them are happy. It's always happy. And I think kind of finding a way to mix a little bit of the pain and sadness paint together into that creates a really beautiful mural of what sheltering is. It's the highest highs and the lowest lows you can ever experience. And sometimes those are 35 minutes apart.
Right, right. What types of pieces of advice would you give people who are maybe considering volunteering or starting out their volunteer journey or starting out a foster journey or whatever that might look like? And when they do come across some animals with some behavioral challenges, which I think is more often than not in the animal rescue world, right? So what kind of sort of basic tips and basic pieces of advice would you give people who are trying to navigate some of those things?
Start small, start easy. So if you're going to volunteer at a shelter, start by doing the dishes and the laundry. Start by greeting people at the front door, whatever it may be. Start by walking around and click for quiet, or don't jump in and go, give me your hardest dogs that you possibly can. That same thing applies. Like, so that's the volunteer aspect, is really go slow and don't overcommit yourself and just dive face first into it, because it will chew you up and spit you out. And the idea is that we want you here for decades. We don't want you here for 110% for 3 months until you break. We don't want that. We want you to go at your own pace and what you comfortably can handle. But then also with fostering too, don't take on the difficult animals. Figure out what you want in your house, what you're willing to do in your house. Start with the worst of the worst, which is puppies. Start with something small and potty training and something like that. Don't go to resource guarding a 15-year-old medical case that will bite your hand if you don't express them the appropriate way. Don't do that. Figure out what you can do in your home. Dip a toe in. Start with a sleepover, a small amount of time. Don't commit. I will literally have this behavior animal in my house until they find a forever home that I deem is it's better than mine. Go slow and figure out what you can handle, and then maybe try something a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. Never overcommit, because it only hurts you and that you're taking on.
You've been pretty candid about being kind of allowing your emotions to come out whenever they need to come out. You're pretty candid about that, it seems. How do you not burn out seeing what you see every day and doing what you do every day?
Uh, my wife. Every time I'm asked this question, I think about how many times just going home for her has saved me. She also works with animals as well, and sheltering and stuff. So she knows that sometimes we just need to sit at our dive bar and stare into the wood pan and with the Lone Star and a shot of whiskey, not to numb or drown, but just to decompress and be with each other in the same space. Um, Without her, I could have never gone and done this, and I would have never have stayed in it, and I would never have been able to plan to make this the rest of my life without her being my rock. Uh, and honestly, the page itself helps. I see the impact it can make. So when I have these horrible lows and really, really, really challenging days and times, knowing that 10 animals are around the country because someone saw a page and flew in and picked them up. Some of my heart's adoptions were placed exclusively because of they saw a video and saw their personality. The fundraising that comes from this page as well is quite literally life changing. My truck got stolen and my followers bought a transport van. Like, I can't imagine. I'm a very, very, very lucky person because I get to experience all of this pain and have so much support. So I'm trying not to take it for granted, and I'm just happy I have my wife.
So how does she not burn out, do you think? Not to put words in her mouth. I don't expect you to speak for her. I'm just curious because, how does the rock stay stable themselves? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have said it before that we are actually two crumbling towers leaning on each other, and as long as the other one is there, the other one stays up. Being a vet is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It's the worst career I can possibly imagine someone having to endure because of lack of pay, the emotional distress, the lack of not respect, that's not the word, but the verbal and emotional abuse that they receive, the underappreciation by the organizations that they work for, the corporatization of vet medicine, making sure intentionally to go, the vets are the bad one, and putting them to block all of the terrible, horrible things. The vets take the blow of all of that because corporates are trying to squeeze 0.4% more out of humans who love their animals or want to help people who love their animals. So being a vet is crushing, and I don't think it is a long time career choice that anyone should make. And we're hoping to phase her out of vet med and work more in the rescue world, like operations, stuff like that. But yeah, both of us really do rely heavily on each other. She reads a lot. I think that really helps. Or the genre of horror, she's at a horror book club meetup right now. That's why I'm in a square in the small town of Lockhart. But yeah, she processes a lot of the same kind of emotional stuff. And so the two of us try not to have our bad days at the same time.
Yes. And boy, it would be nice if we had that choice. Finding someone, whether it's your partner or a friend or a mentor or whatever, that you can kind of just lean on when you feel awful. That's just really lovely that you guys have found that for each other. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, there's no other person in the world that would put up with, I think, either of us the way that we put up with each other's approach to animal welfare, what we bring into the house, what we choose to do. We should put a fence in the front yards. That way we have 2 yards for 2 different sets of animals. Like, just ridiculous decisions that we should have never made. But luckily the other one supported the other one's decision. So no one else on this planet is as perfectly broken and fitted for each other as we are.
That's lovely. I love that for both of you. That's wonderful. Given the time that you've spent in animal rescue and the time that you've spent in animal welfare, what is one thing you just wish everybody knew? You wish you could get out there and you say over and over again, that would be important towards just either understanding or change?
Very complex question that I think has like 2 approaches. A more shallow one would be just spay and neuter your animals. Bob Barker said it best. Just
Cameron, listen to my old episodes. I have said that no fewer than like 5 times on this podcast.
That's really
I'm like,
funny.
Barker was right. Oh,
That's so funny. Yeah. The If everyone who had an animal spayed and neutered it, and there's this argument of the growth plates and the their health, and then when they turn 10 or something like that, and it's like you live in a community. Your job is to make the community better. Best way to make your community better is to look out for the beings that are in your community. And that includes dogs and cats. So don't breed them, just spay and neuter them. And if they unfortunately get some hip dysplasia when they're 11 years old, that is a sacrifice you made for your community. I'm sorry. Spay and neuter your pets is the, I think, easy, shallow, one sentence response to what you asked. What's the one thing I want to scream into people's faces? Every time we're walking down the street, both me and my wife will be like, and hoof. Nope, I got balls. God, terrible pet owners. Like, that's the judgment we passed on folks for sure.
Same here. Have you had this? I think that this is not necessarily a unique experience for people who, because I'm sorry that I don't know this. Do you foster in home at all, or do you primarily keep your work at the shelter?
Yeah, no, we foster, and again, we make bad decisions and go. Someone found a dog. Should we take him in? We can't do that. Okay, well, remember when we took in the other dog? You wanted to do that, and then so essentially well, I'm allowed one animal because you were allowed one animal, and then we just do that for infinity. But bringing dogs into our home, they have to be perfect. Yeah, that's again, we know what over committing looks like. We that we will never do that again. We will never push the boundaries of our animals' safety and our safety. So we do not take behavior animals in. We can do some mild medical cases, nothing that requires an overburdening bottle babies. I do not do anymore. We did that one time. I like sleep too much for that experience. But we will bring in usually relatively adolescent in the month, 7 to 11 months old, bomb proof and tested with dogs, really good temperament, casual, not prey driving and play group. We we did 18 last year, both dogs and cats. But yeah, we do foster in home, but it's got to be a very good dog. And usually I see them in play group for a week or two before I even think about bringing them into the house. Because we have 6 cats and 3 dogs and a relatively busy lifestyle. So we need something that's relatively turnkey and bomb proof, can be adopted pretty quickly, or we'll throw an old senior cat into the cat room. Just exist.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've had this experience, and that's sort of why I brought it up, but I have had the experience now since I've been fostering of like a couple of random people sort of reaching out to me and being like, well, I have this litter of puppies and I can't seem to find homes for all of them. Do you think you could help me out? And my the first thing I'll say is, did you get the animals spayed and neutered that you had this quote unquote accidental litter with? And if they say no, then my like nice to nasty turns real quick where I'm like, this is not what I'm here for. I'm not here to bail you out of a problem that not only did you, start, but that you're going to continue to perpetuate, you're going to have again. You know what I mean? And that's an experience that just drives me absolutely insane. So I don't know if that's happened to you or you've had conversations like that with either followers or casual acquaintances or neighbors or whatever, but it drives me nuts.
I get a can you help me text or DM. I don't want to be hyperbolic. Let's say every other day I get something that says, hey, found this dog. Hey, you do animal stuff. Hey, can you help me? I have a question about, yeah, the litter of puppies one. Litters, we don't bail people out accidentally. Fortunately, their responsibility to find a home and all that. For that, I will courtesy post, hey, there's the whatever litters, but I'll point them to the PASS program, which is Positive Alternative for Shelter Surrender. And we'll post on Facebook and whatever. And that's on you. I hate that happens, but and then I send them the links to the free spay and neuter resources, clinics, the cheap ones. I mean, we found a stray that was not neutered, signed him up to get altered, and then it was 4 days later that we found a place. Our Manta Peppa does it for super cheap. It was like $120, super easy in and out. And within finding the dog to them being neutered was less than 4 or 5 days. So it's very easy and doable and takes almost no time. And you just drop them off at 8 in the morning and then pick them up at 5 in the afternoon. And it's $120. Now, I'm not saying that $120 is fully accessible and everyone has $120 burning a hole in their pocket, but there are quarterly, usually some sort of free spay and neuter. You might have to wake up at 5 in the morning, you might have to drive an hour and a half, but you can make it to where you aren't messaging folks every 3 to 4 months. You're like, darn, got a whoopsie litter again.
Right.
So yeah, I will help people out that are genuinely trying to do the right thing. And Good Samaritans, finding a dog, it was hungry, it starved, I had to stop. It was on the highway. Heck yeah, I will do what I can to help you out. You intentionally, for the third time, chose not to get your dog neutered due to masculinity. So now I have to help you out. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you. So you had said that spay and neuter was kind of your superficial level answer to my question about one thing that you wish people knew. What's your less superficial answer?
I think the next step down into something a little bit deeper is that uh, children and dogs don't mix. As someone who was raised with dogs, it's hard to have that stance. As someone who advocates for having dogs in your home, if a child is not developed enough to understand emotional complexity of an animal and how poking them is enough to irritate a dog, and you can't communicate with that child because they're not old enough to set those rules and boundaries, you should not have a dog in your house. And that sucks that it is now the dog that has to say, I communicated appropriately, I growled, I snapped, I escalated my corrections the way that they would with other dogs to communicate I'm uncomfortable. But if the dog tags a kid one time for jumping on it while it's sleeping, then the dog gets put down, the child's injured, or they get kicked out of the family. Not the child, the dog. It's not an option. Can't be kicking kids out of your house. But and I've seen appropriate respect from a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old around an animal. So I know it's doable, but I know I've also seen 12-year-olds who think that they're allowed to put them in a chokehold and jump off the couch with them and all that stuff. And very clearly have never been told that. Yes, the responsibility falls on the parent, but it also is this child is emotionally or developmentally unable to understand emotional complexity of an animal. So therefore, they shouldn't be around that animal. So don't go out and get a dog, even if they have notes of being perfect with toddlers and whatever, being super, super, super sweet and bomb proof and can handle any sort of external stimuli and no startle response of any kind. Okay, maybe you can take the 9-year-old shelter dog who's grew up with kids their entire life, sure. But even going out and getting a puppy because you think it's safe is accurate. I mean, that's not how dogs work.
Well, it's a two-way street. And there are way too many instances where we don't see that the child has that same expectation of respect as the dogs do. And they're not, taught that boundary the way that the dogs are. I mean, our organization, when we run applications, we scroll social media in an attempt to just make sure that we're not seeing any red flags of pictures or behaviors or, undisclosed pets in the house, undisclosed adults in the house that we need to like do a judicial search on, that kind of thing. And one of the things that red flags us real quick is like if we see a child like crawling in a crate with a dog, if we see a child like getting food out of the dog's bowl or reaching in a dog's mouth or quote unquote riding a dog, all that stuff pretty quickly lets us know that you're not letting your child know that you need to respect that dog's boundaries, because like none of those things would be tolerable. Well, in theory, right? There's exceptions to everything, but none of those things would be tolerable amongst siblings for you to grab your brother and put him on a chokehold and, toss him on the couch if he's that much smaller than you, or you wouldn't expect the brother not to retaliate or whatever. But for some reason, these expectations with dogs are different where they're supposed to be able to have this higher tolerance for that type of thing than even the children are. So yeah, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head with a lot of the things we talk about in here about it has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, that's an level of depth into what's one thing that uh you want to let everyone know is if you have friends, your family that go to therapy that are experiencing depression, that are struggling with navigating the world and life, and they're on medications and antidepressants and things like that. So somehow that's missed that animals, dogs can be in the same place. Again, emotional complexity is something I keep saying over and over and over and over again, but folks don't really register the emotional complexity and how some dogs truly are going to be manic and struggling. And if you can't accept an animal as a trauma survivor, as depressive, as bringing anxiety, if you can't accept that that is a possibility, then owning an animal is going to be challenging for you, if not kind of inappropriate for you to do. Uh, so, kind of one of those, yes, people seek companion animals and they want something that is sweet and fun and fluffy and to go perfectly into their lifestyle. And then they take this completely individual being and go, now cram your square into the circle that is my life. And they don't afford the dog to take some time to mold into. Again, it's weird because I work at a shelter and I want everyone to come get dogs, but I also don't want them to get a dog that they're not able to understand.
Absolutely agree. I mean, I know that a lot of rescue organizations and a lot of shelters get a lot of crap for having an application process. I see a lot of negative feedback about an application process, and the reality of it is we're looking out for the people and the environment just as much as we are for the animal. Well, maybe not just as much. I care more about the apps, but we want to make sure that it's going to work on both ends. And it's our job to maybe see some of the things that you don't see to make sure that this is going to work out appropriately. And that takes a lot of effort, and that takes a lot of sometimes disappointing people, but we're in it for the animals ultimately. So I had mentioned to you that at the end of each episode, I like to do something called a foster spotlight, where we talking about an animal that maybe needs a little bit more attention in order to potentially get fostered or adopted. And I was curious, and just so you know, I have Austin Pets Alive's website up on my laptop right now. But I was curious if there was a particular animal that might be at Austin Pets Alive or somewhere else that you're familiar with that you think would be a great foster spotlight for us.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, he did technically go to a sleepover host. It's not a permanent foster. I think they said they're going to start with 3 days, maybe five. But Harley, Harley is one of, if not our longest stay dogs. He really struggled with on-leash reactivity in close quarters with people and settings like that. It used to take 2 weeks in order to meet this guy, of slowly playing fetch with him and treats before you could even go into his space. And now the dude is just like, yeah, I'll meet anyone and you can take me home. He's an old man. He's a senior. This is going to sound cruel. He's a short-term commit. And I do think people are looking for that. They don't want to commit potentially 15 years to an animal that may not be the perfect dog. But seniors, they're easy. They're housebroken. They usually just want to sleep on a soft bed. And Harley checks all of those boxes. He is nothing pressing giant lumps or tumors or masses or anything on him. But he is a bit of a medical case. He's an older dog and he's been living in the office at our behavior team office pretty much since I started for a year and a half now. And he's unfortunately a dog that is just never what people are going to show up and look for, not for any other reason except people don't want senior pity guy who just wants to play fetch and sleep. He's a really sweet dog, and deserves the home that he deserves for his final years. Fingers crossed on this earth. Get a short-term commitment.
So I pulled him up, and he's gorgeous. I love his little black and white face and his little flopped over ears. And every single picture, he just looks so happy. He looks like he just, and maybe even though it took him some time to get used to people, it seems like he likes being around them now because he seems so happy in every single picture.
We haven't had anything from him that I would say is even a behavior situation, and I don't even know how long. He literally is just so over it. He just wants to sleep and play fetch and hang out at someone's house. So that's all he wants to do. So yeah, he's technically a behavior dog, but definitely not one that I'm putting on the top list. He's maybe the easiest dog to plug into most homes without kids. Yeah, super sweet guy, and he's cute as heck.
He is so stinking cute. So I'm going to read his bio. And I want you guys to know if you are interested in taking a look at Harley, you can go to austinpetsalive.org And you can go to their Adopt Adoptable Dogs and their advanced search tool, and you can type in Harley's name, and he comes up right away, Harley. You can check out Harley on Instagram, and I will link this in the show notes, and I will also link this on my Instagram page, but at playfetch.with.harley. But Harley is a funny and affectionate guy, full of personality and truly the perfect example of living in the moment. This spunky senior is looking for a loving, low-traffic home to spend his golden years. That is not too much to ask, especially for a pup as handsome and sweet as this big hunk. This black and white spotted boy loves to sleep with you in bed, ask for butt scratches whenever you got a free hand, play fetch, put his feet on your computer while you're Googling dog toys, hop in the car for a ride, snuggle on the sofa, supervise home improvement projects, make laundry fun by bringing you toys, snuffle for treats in a ball bin, get belly rubs, roll in the grass, and get all clean in the shower. He just looks like a really special dog. So I will link Harley's information. I'll post his picture. I will put his link in the show notes. So I really appreciate you bringing Harley to our attention. And if you're not already familiar with Cameron's page on Instagram and you're listening to this episode, it's really important that you look it up and you follow him because to his own point, he does a lot of fundraising and a lot of awareness for animal rescue and animal welfare. So it's does.it.dangle on Instagram. I will also link him in my Instagram feed and on the show notes. As far as the podcast is concerned, please follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, subscribe to it. You can follow our Instagram page at the Foster Files on Instagram, and you can send me an email if there's anybody that you think I need to talk to or subjects I need to talk about, thefosterfiles@gmail.com. But Cameron, I really just wanted to thank you so much for your time today, for your candor, and for all the incredible work that you're doing at Awesome Pets Alive. If you ever make it out to Pittsburgh again, you and the doc, and you need to meet up with somebody at a brewery, Michael and I are the very first ones you should reach out to because I know all the breweries that allow dogs. So I point you in the right direction of our favorite Pittsburgh brewery, which is Grist House. So if you've never been there, I highly, highly recommend for both the beer and for the puppy dogs.
Heck yeah. Don't threaten me with a good
Yeah,
time.
I know, right? But again, thank you so much for all the work that you do. Thank the doc for all the work that she does as well on my behalf. And again, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. And I wish you a happy, healthy, and prosperous 2026.
Thank you so much for everything and letting me ramble and try not to cry while talking about the love of my life.
Well, I really appreciate it. Everybody, be kind to yourself and be kind to animals. Have a wonderful day.